this particular topic that is rather enjoyable, to be fair. Good old-fashioned Subverse. Man, that is a topic that is old as sin at this point. And not that much talked about, mostly because, well, it did, you know, had some waves going for it during its initial phase of collecting money to actually make this a thing, but well, after that it was quiet for a while. But it did release its 1.0, which, you know, put it out of early access and into actual presence once more. And since I had the distinct nice opportunity to be basically without internet and with nothing that I wanted to particularly play without actually streaming it at the same time, also, you know, saying peace with many more words, I realized that Steam had very, very dutifully, before my internet was gone, apparently decided to update the game to its 1.0 state, and, well, by the same token also made it so that I could not actually play my save game from the past, meaning I had to replay this whole fucking shit from the get-go. And since I had many days to do so, I can very politely point out that I did finish the game. Again. It was actually quite the fun ride for the most part, I must admit. And of course, this gives me a lot of opportunity to talk about, well, pornography. Yes, I played through the whole game strategy. I had 8 days to go through the whole game in its 1.0 state, and I'll tell you how it was. I'll tell you how the journey was, because it was really enjoyable, for the most part. The game still has the same kind of problems as, for the most part, that it had during its early access stages, and since when the original, was it a Kickstarter actually? I think it was a Kickstarter. It came around, I actually had some extra money. I threw some money at this, which means I have this on Steam, although you can't buy this in Germany on Steam, because if I click on the shop page, I get a, well, this content is not available in your country, which kinda sucks, but oh well. Jokes aside, Subverse. In case you are aware, Subverse is a game, yes, a game with pornographic features that is made by Studio FOW, of honestly probably quite well-known fame for their pornographic animations, of which they have done quite a few. The content of said animations were not always aligned with my personal tastes, but I cannot deny the quality of their animations. Those were pretty damn fucking high. So of course, when they were like, well, we can see ourselves making the actual full game, I was like, yeah, the West ain't really good in that whole porn game genre. Let's be honest, yeah. They were. In the 80s and the 90s, I remember, there were lots of Western porn games, you know, click and point adventures and other such things. Even Germany had a few studios who made that, like the Hospital Management one, the Bing one. Had lots of cute, very sexual drawings and shit, and wasn't a bit management at all. It was harsh. I can tell you that much. It was harsh. Didn't allow for much failure, let's just say. So when I look at porn games, I look to the West and despair, for the most part. And I look to the East and go like, okay, yeah, even with such simple tools as RPG Maker, you kinda keep up the whole fucking thing in every fetish you can imagine, in every variant you can imagine, and still up to this day finding new variants to do it. So when I saw this originally pop up, I was like, yeah, this is going to fucking fail hard, isn't it? Especially, you know, Studio FOW is, well, they're well known for their animations. It takes a bit more than just a few animations to make a game, obviously. But well, as I said, I had some extra spending cash during the times, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna throw some money at you and fuck it. Because I would kinda like to see what you can do with that. And, well, during the early access, some problems surfaced, of course, and they dealt with quite a few of those problems, and made an interesting decision, first and foremost. And that is something I would rather like to somewhat highlight, actually. You see, while this game is made by a studio that is mostly, and pretty much solely known for making, well, smexy animations of waifus getting fucked in many different ways by many different things, individuals, races, species, and other things. They actually kept it in a very separate way from their game, so to speak. Yes, whenever you recruit a new waifu to your team, and I'll tell you a bit more about how the story is set up in a moment, you do get a nice little recruitment smexy team where you are banging your waifu, which is nice, but all of the other smexy times you can have with your waifu are actually kinda kept separate from the actual game inside something that is called Pandora, which is a rather bold move for a studio, as I said, most famously known for making smexy animations. With that in mind, a bold decision indeed. Well, not necessarily a bad one, I must say. Keeping it separate and actually locked behind you actually leveling up your waifus and getting enough points to buy said smexy scenes is not necessarily a bad idea at all. As it allows you to, well, indulge in the game and its story. So to start off with, let's take a look at what we have. Basically, the game is set with, well, the captain aboard the Mary Celeste, a rather nice spaceship full of stealth tech that he absolutely should not have, sailing through the universe, not doing much more than being, a drunkard, a drug addict, and actually not much more. He's kinda done. The setting is kinda in a bit of a, humanity kinda decided to take all of their criminal scum, put them on ships called gulags, and send them out into space through a wormhole because, well, fuck them, and their need for food and sustenance that humanity is absolutely not willing to pay. At which point they found themselves in a nice new galaxy called Prodigium, where, well, humanity and its tendency to be somewhat more rambunctious than most settled, not necessarily willingly, but through sheer force, on a garbage planet, and turned that garbage planet into a paradise of, I don't know, hookers, blackjack, and drugs, lots of drugs, called New Vegas. Which is all great and dandy, but the simple fact that the most prominent ruling body in the galaxy, the Sinnoh and their little senate, actually do worship a certain religion called the Veil, which is very much so a religion of purity and, holding back and not stuffing stuff up your ass in order to get more of a thrill while you masturbate. Actually quite the opposite of that, to put it rather mildly. As you can imagine, they were not looking too fondly on New Vegas and its, well, drugs, hookers, and all the other things. Our dear little captain during this heyday of it was the, well, head of security basically on this particular garbage planet, and was actually pretty fucking good at it. Well, that, and he was also, probably one of the best customers of the whole place. Now, suffice to say, that did not last long, as the Empire then decided to eradicate New Vegas for being, well, quite opposite to what they strived forwards to. And mind you, humanity is not the only species that get basically fucked over by the Empire's most ardent belief in purity and their denial of anything that is even remotely, well, related to smexy times and having fun. As you can already see, the story is shaping up to be somewhat relatively simple and rebellious, as of course. Our dear captain will then start his mission to collect, I do love that they're actually called waifus in this case, waifus, in order to build a little rebellious army to fight against the Empire and potentially topple it, in order to enjoy more, cheap horse and very pricey drugs. The game is absolutely unabashed in its ways. It is absolutely going to use many fuck yous and many ways in order to tell somebody to shove something up their ass and joke on it, which is something that you pretty much only see in Western media to this degree, and it is absolutely not holding back in this particular art. The language used is very direct, and to be fair, some of the jokes did amuse me rather much. There's no question there, actually. So that speaks very well for it. Storytelling-wise, as I said, it's not something that has never been done before. It is the... At the end of the day, it's a bit of a classical take on the whole, you know, you have the small rebellious group against the big empire, and nothing new there. It has its twists and turns, and as far as storytelling goes, I must admit, I was expecting actually worse from Studio FOW, as I said. Even if you watch some of their longer animations, it's not like any of those would require any sort of longer lasting storytelling, to put it mildly. As for the waifus themselves, well, you have a nice little collection of very, very different ones, from, you know, a little maxi little mainframe with a pretty nice body and lots of upgrades to make it fuckable, because of course if you had a fucking mainframe on your ship, would you want to make it fuckable? I think everybody would make it fuckable if they had so much as the chance. To well, rather young and sprite little hacker lady, to an elf, in a sense. An elf that actually wanted to, I'm not gonna spoil it for you in case you wanted to pick it up at some point, but let's just say she has a distinct need to try out that good old-fashioned bestiality thing. However, considering that as an elf, bestiality would include just fucking any sort of, for example, human, yeah, the captain was kinda in favor of that. The amount you realized that could include his dick in her ass, so there's that. There's also basically a dwarf, or well, the blue halfling, basically. Kind of weird, but she had a tendency to be a raging alcoholic and battle maniac, so I kind of did like her. She had her moments. She wasn't, you know, getting pissed drunk for 2 days for the final mission and then just fell on the fucking floor face first. As I said, yeah, it is very much so. You can tell the game has a lot of the more Western aesthetics to it than you would find in any Eastern release, comparatively speaking. I don't think I need to mention that the animations done for each of the individual waifus were of course done pretty fucking damn solid, which is the one point that I had no worries about Studio FOW in any capacity, because that is kind of what they excel at. And just the storytelling, as I said, even just the telling, is absolutely serviceable. It's nothing so special that I would write love letters to it, but it gets the job done. There are some problems because, you know, they do use the sort of visual novel kind of thing, and since it is done, I do believe in Unreal Engine, you can just skip ahead nearly as nice as you would in a normal visual novel, which is kinda a minus. So basically, every single time the characters do any sort of pose change while they're talking, you can't actually skip the text ahead, even if you've already read it, which is not good, to put it mildly. It slows down the game unnecessarily much. As a technicality, that is not good also, although I should have all of the achievements on this game. I didn't got the one for recruiting Blythe, so there is still some problems that need to be addressed in future patches. But you can play the game from beginning to end, and let's take a look about the gameplay components. As I said, there is a visual novel-like storytelling going on. You know, the usual thing where you have characters on the screen and you have a text box that tells you, as I said. To be fair, the game is, for the most part, and I really do mean for the most part, as in basically almost everything, voiced. The voice actors do a pretty good job at what they're doing, and even though the text they actually had to read from this is in some cases absolutely hilariously creative in ways to describe how somebody is supposed to fuck themselves, do a pretty damn convincing job of it, that I do enjoy very much. As for other things, the game has 2 combat modes. This is one of them. This is the ground combat, basically, which is basically a turn-based grid combat system, where you usually send your waifu and 3 of your manticores. Manticores being basically an alien breed by combining different DNA and creating a monstrosity. Yeah, one of your ship's waifus is responsible for those ones, and they all come equipped with rather interesting and alien appendices to penetrate one's waifu with. I know, interesting, isn't it? I can see where this particular studio made its origins easy enough. As for the ground combat itself, in the early access stages, the ground combat was kinda annoying in some parts, mostly because every single one of your little manticores had its own individual level and needed to be trained up, and well, fortunately they kinda took care of that. Now basically you get a squad level, which is based roughly on your waifu's level, so you don't need to worry about leveling up your fucking manticores any longer, which I find enjoyable. They come in two variants. You have a melee variant, you have a ranged variant, same with your waifus. They also either prefer melee combat. They usually come along with one or two attack abilities that you can use that have then different ranges on the little grid thing you have here. And generally speaking, it's nothing special. The one interesting thing is you see these nice little red balls the enemies have here, or is that an enemy? I don't even know if that's an enemy. Maybe an enemy. I don't fucking care. Basically, you have some sort of adrenaline system where by getting hit and shit, you get points to unlock your special ability, which usually does more damage or produces a shield, you know, the usual RPG stuff that you kinda see in such systems. Apart from that, as I said, it's absolutely functional, and they did kinda, I feel, made it a bit more reasonable since the 1.0 release. Because as I said, since you don't actually have to level all of your manticores, you're far more free in choosing whatever the fuck you want and what works for you. I played through most of the game with the 3 initial ones and was more than happy to do it. And I think I only changed it once I got the actually the last 2 manticores in the list to use. Apart from that, it gets the job done. Of course, you don't always have the free choice. Some levels, especially the ones where you either try to recruit somebody or have some other special mission where you are not allowed to choose your waifu, you're pretty much free to use whoever you want. I personally preferred any sort of range variant, mostly Lily, because, well, she also does steal your, or her little manticores, rather, at random. Which is kind of useful, mind you. You do take a lot of damage because you're usually 4 against waves of enemies. Speaking of which, the raid, I feel, is a lot better enemy and especially wave-wise, because basically you start the map, you have 4 people, the enemy has maybe 5 or 6, and once to beat them, or once one full turn has passed, everybody had a turn, usually the second wave comes and then comes a third wave, and sometimes even a fourth wave, but yeah, since you're kinda, you know, the underdog numerically wise, having a heal ability is kinda nice. So Lily is kinda cool at that. I mean, she's some fucking smexy MILF, so yeah, it kinda works in her favor as well, let's just say. Well, here's a game mode. Fuck you. I don't care about that. Is that one. Which is, well, as you can see, some good old-fashioned shooty shit in space. Which is quite legit. That one is your little Phoenix, your little ship that you usually tend to fly around on. It comes with, as you would expect, on a nice little 2D plane where you're set on in space. You shoot the different enemies with your main attack, left mouse button, moving with the WASD, the little ship around, and basically, well, the field is limited, is rather big. You have your standard attack, which is just little shooty forward, wherever you are aiming. You're free to aim all around your ship with your mouse. And now, very, very much so, unknown depths of gameplay we have never seen before. And you have some options there. You can use the spacebar. Actually, tutorial just tells you to do a thrust attack, which basically catapults you forward wherever you're looking at that particular time. And you usually get a special attack with your right mouse button, which is kinda determined on which of your waifus you take as a co-pilot with you. In this tutorial, I think you only get the standard missile, which is basically you alone. Then others have other cool little things. Like, for example, the little elf lady, the little elf wife who has a homing sort of attack. Your little demoness has a basically a shotgun. A broadside attack. I like to call it a shotgun because it kinda is a shotgun. And such other nonsense, but that one, honestly, especially in the earlier stages of the early access, was a royal pain in the ass to do because, well, it wasn't really that uncommon to have like 6 fucking waves of enemies to deal with, and that actually takes a lot of time. Which wouldn't really be a problem if, well, for better or worse, you would only actually have this happening, like, you know, a few times in the mission. But sadly, this game has a bit of an unfortunate tendency where, you know, the game slowly introduces you to its story. So basically, you know, it introduces the captain being, well, the captain, introduces Demi, your little mainframe, equipped with a nice body and all the orifices you need in order to fuck said mainframe, which is kind of cute, and then goes like, okay, listen, we are now going to start a giant fucking quest to create a specialist team in order to, well, start a revolution, which sounds all nice and dandy. And then you basically get introduced to the galaxy and realize there are different nebulas that you can click on, which then open up different systems that you can visit and places to, well, explore. Exploration comes in per planet, basically, in a bit of a Mass Effect-esque sort of style, where you go into a system, you scan planets, and you see what's on them, and then you either get a ground combat scenario, a space combat scenario, or an event scenario, where you basically have to choose the choice of sending one of your waifus in order to, well, use your particular skills in order to get yourself something out of it, for the most part. As I said before, during the early access, and during the last time I played it in early access, there was actually not much in the way of events, but there was basically just space combat and ground combat, and considering the sheer amount of that, it was rather ridiculous. Once you opened up a system, you would suddenly find yourself, if you are an old ass RPG player, like me basically, with side objectives a la, oh, I don't know, 100 plus, before you would even think about engaging with the next part of the, well, main story. Might not be the case for everybody, but if you're, you know, an old-ass player, you might be very tempted to scout out every last fucking bit before you would, you know, continue with your main quest, which is far too much. Far too much, even. Now in 1.0, when you start out, you first get introduced to the Dragon Nebula, and you get a mildly 24 potential points of interest you can take a look at, which sounds reasonable, honestly, because that means aside from the main quest one that I need to, well, you know, get to continue with the main quest, it's like 23 events, a nice mix of ground, space, and event content, and that is reasonable. However, the game still has the exact same problem that it had before. Namely, once you continue into the next nebula, which is, I think, was it the Kraken Nebula? Was Kraken the next one, or was it Hydra? I think it was Hydra, actually, was it? I don't fucking remember. I remember the second nebula. So you start your, basically, next recruitment quest for your second waifu. Actually, is it your second waifu? Kinda depends on how you count, because, well, you kinda start with one, so let's not get into the mathematics here. With the same problem rears its ugly heads, because suddenly the nebula will open up and you will suddenly find yourself with the rather daunting quest of having 100 plus potential points of interest to investigate. It sucks. And it sucks hard. It gives you all the opportunities in the world to level up your waifus, which is nice, and the system is kind of set up in a way that after, depending on where you are in the story, your waifu's leveling process will be blocked. So I think in the beginning you can only go to, I want to say, like level, was it level 20 or something? I don't know if I can remember. Was it level 12 or something? It doesn't really matter. Basically, the game kind of decides to block you from leveling ever further because, well, with a max level of 40, otherwise you might be very, very overpowered for what's to come. That would be kind of sad, wouldn't it be? Now, you don't actually lose any experience if you continue collecting it. The experience gets politely put aside as blue-balled experience, quite literally with a nice little blue symbol, basically depicting some balls, in order to tell that yes, your waifu has more experience, but she can't level up any longer because the game is not going to let her at the moment. But it's not lost, so, you know, once that limitation is lifted, she's going to get all of that experience and level up like mad. Which is a good system, because as I said, if you are a classical RPG player, And if you have 100 points of interest, well, 99 secondary ones and 1 primary one that you need in order to, continue the story, you will look at those 99 ones first, which is precisely what I did. It takes an assholish amount of time. They've made things better. The space combat is shortened. In the past we had a lot of encounters with 6+ waves of enemies. Now it's usually 3, and in very rare cases more than 3 waves of enemies to deal with, which is good. In general speaking, the space combat does feel like it's becoming, or has become faster and shorter. I think on average I finished like one of these space missions in like a minute or two, basically. The ground combat wasn't really that much different. You also kinda finished up those in a few minutes at most. So it's not like any individual point is that much of a time waster. It's just the sheer amount that you get offered at once is what really fucks with you. I mean, it takes a while. The combined time is kind of what kills you there, I must admit. I'm not saying it's a bad thing necessarily to have more of that in there, but there's only so much you can do the same basic bitch space combat. The same grid combat before you're kind of like, nah, I'm kind of getting bored. This comes with the advantage, of course, that you unlock more points that you can spend on your waifu's nice little smexy scenes, because if you level up, you get some points to spend on those as well. And for a studio that, as I said, is absolutely pretty much only known for smexy animations, to put all of that basically aside from the player and basically make it an optional thing that you can or cannot engage with is a bold move. Because that means your game would have to essentially stand on its, well, own game merits, and not just on the power of its animations. Speaking of which, the story is of course told in many great little, not only just visual novel elements, but also nice little cutscenes for pretty much everything. And as far as that goes, when it comes to depicting spaceships, space combat, and other things, I actually did a fucking good job there. I wasn't worried about fucking animations being bad at all. As I said, I just wasn't aware just how well they would do with, things that aren't dealing directly or indirectly with the railing of someone. Must admit they did pretty fucking well. All the way up to the end, making it a rather enjoyable point. Your waifus, of course, also, have some opportunities to talk with them and get a bit closer to them, and at the end of the long journey they also get a nice little devotion quest. Which, honestly, some of them were pretty fucking nice. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that, I was overly emotional about them for the most part, but I did feel a short little swing here and there going like, what, that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice indeed. Especially considering that we're still talking about a fucking porn game. Now, if this is all that it was hyped up to be, by some at least, honestly is something I would probably kinda say is up to the individual. In my particular, I wasn't expecting much to begin with, apart from some smexy animations, and you get an assholish amount of them. With all the variations you would expect from Studio FOW. There's your waifus on their own, there's your waifus playing with the captain, there's your waifus playing with the Xenos. There's pretty much everything in there that you could potentially. There's even Futa in there, mind you. And it was like, damn, nice choice. I wasn't expecting you to go there, but I'll fucking take it. So yeah, you should be able to find something for pretty much anyone's taste in there. And while not all of the animations are, full-on smack scenes going all the way from beginning to, someone or something coming copious amounts, most of them are pretty fucking nice to look at. And since you have a nice variety of waifus in quite the amount, as I said, from the nice little MILF Doctoress, classical nice MILF with glasses, to red-skinned demoness, basically, to, well, you have a fucking literal sex bot to start off with, to a fucking, dwarf lady in blue, to a fucking elf, well, I mean, it's a dark-skinned elf, so I guess that's kind of cute. There's also gonna be, you know, of that valley bitch thing going on, but I mean, you know, tastes differ. And, well, I mean, there's even another rather experienced man of that could join you potentially at pretty much at the end of the game, which I still haven't got my Focus achievement for, which I would rather like to have, because I'm pretty sure I fucking finished it. And a fucking devotion quest as well, mind you. So yeah, I really played this to its most finished state that I could, by quite literally going through every last single event, doing every last single fucking quest. As for the side quests, in some cases there are some references to internet stuff that I didn't get and actually had to look up at some point, or well, will have to look up because I made notes of it. Because I was like, yeah, this is, I can tell that I'm supposed to be laughing at something here, I just don't get the joke. So that's not going to age well. 10 years or 20 years from now, probably nobody will, or well, rather everybody will have the same problem that I had, going like, well, yeah, but fuck that. It is what it is. The story presented in and of itself, as I said multiple times, in a very humoristic way that you'll, in that particular direct way, will probably not find in anything Eastern. As I said, I've learned many great ways of telling somebody to basically now stick up a few dicks up their throat in order to shut them up, which is actually the right way to doing it in this particular episode. As I said, this sort of really unabashed, direct, center-provoking, in-your-face kind of thing, fourth wall breaking, and whatever else you can imagine in this particular regard. That is actually the sort of thing that you can point, or can land points with. Because as I said, that is not something you get from the Eastern market for the most part. Really not. That, of course, and the fact that, well, since it's a Western product, it's uncensored. There's no fucking pixelation over the genitals, so, you know, that is also a rather nice plus point. I believe this is actually a rather nice, or could be a rather nice reminder that, yes, while there will be porn, you can also make a decent game. As I said, the shooting elements, pretty fun. Nothing shooting or shoot 'em up game-wise that you haven't seen before, but it works. It's simple enough to work. The ground combat the same. It's a simple turn-based grid combat system that just works, and they have simplified it enough with taking the fucking levels out of the fucking manticores to make it actually, or make you actually be able to be versatile, which is kind of fun, because that means you don't have to replay basically the same combat over and over again. Which you will still do, because there is, as I said, a fucking 100 plus points of interest per fucking nebula, and there's 4 of them. Meaning, if you just do the simple math, you will end up with over 500 fucking points of interest. Now, if we were to subtract the main things, like, you know, main quest things and devotion quest points of interest, you would still end up with probably around 400 either side quests or completely optional fucking encounters, which is just too much. I get it, it's at its core basically an RPG, it's supposed to leveling up, but you have so many options to level up your waifus. Mind you, leveling up in this case is called basically, well, it's not called levels, it's called devotion, and you can get it through, well, using them in combat, or alternatively, well, giving them gifts. Since I had no problem at all leveling up the waifus even by using pretty much just a few of them regularly, and the other ones basically just here and there, I still got them all to level fucking 40, which is the max level, easily enough, even those that joined very much so later on. I probably would have preferred it if they had opened up later on instead of basically from the beginning. It's a bit overwhelming, is basically what I'm saying, and it does feel like a cheap way to potentially incur more game time than strictly necessary. It does kind of feel sometimes like they kind of had forgotten somewhere along the way that they are supposed to be a porn game, that people are there for the porn first and foremost, and the game probably is secondary, if secondary, mind you, aspect. But It's enjoyable. Honestly, I would still recommend you get it if you actually can in your country, because if you're in Germany, you're fucked if you're trying to get it over Steam. I'm not saying there aren't any ways that you can get it. I'm saying you will probably find ways to get it if you are interested, for the most part. But depending on where in the world you are, it's not going to be as easy. Still worth though. Maybe not at its full price, which I would like to tell you what it is right now, but I can only take an educated guess, as Germany, as I said, does not actually allow me to check that out. But maybe we're gonna use some good old-fashioned trickery, shall we? Let's see here, if I were to... Oh, I don't know. Cheat a little bit. Can I cheat this? I wonder. I can. Yeah, but it's still like, you need to be locked in. I don't want to be locked in now. It's kind of the whole point. Let's see what some other sites then offer us price-wise, so I can actually give you an idea. The problem really with fucking Germany these days. Oh well, but technically speaking, it's a problem with Germany and Steam. Because technically speaking, they don't like each other. I mean, Germany doesn't like Steam because Steam is like, well, we have games. And Germany's like, well, are your games USK sorted? Can you make sure that only adults buy adult games? And Steam is like, no, fuck that. We asked them politely to confirm that they are, you know, of age. Germany's like, that's not enough. Fuck you. Bit of a pain that. Now let's see here. Current price in US dollar, $39.99. 40 bucks. Is that true for Germany? Can I see Germany in here? Actually, do we have a German price for this even? Because honestly, it would be kinda interesting. Because, you know, why would you have a German price if you can't actually sell this in Germany? Let's see. Long list. Well, we have a euro price, but that's not surprising as, well, Germany is not the only ones who use euros. Sad as that might be. So, wow, 38.99. I guess we can stay with 40 bucks. That's easier to remember. For the price in US dollars. And, well, I don't know if I would attest to it. I mean, the animations inside are definitely worth 40 bucks. Both the story sequences as well as the, well, more smacksy sequences are probably worth 40 bucks. I have no question there. So that for the other elements, if I just take them on their own, if I just look at this as a game, and not as, you know, porn, would it be 40 bucks that I'd be willing to pay for this as just a game? Probably not, honestly. I wouldn't even pay 30 bucks for that. I would say 20 bucks is probably more than enough for what the game actually is, gameplay-wise. As I said, it's nothing too excessive. It doesn't really reinvent the wheel in any shape or form. What it does, at least as far as 1.0 is nowadays concerned, it does it relatively solid, that is true. But would that be worth it? I really wonder. I really wonder indeed. Now, as far as some other nice little statistic that I, you know, just looked up on little Steam, it is of course not going to reach nearly as much of its all-time player peak that it had. I think during the original early access, at which point it was very much, and it, as I said, it did kind of fall off the radar for a long while during its early access. You can basically see that it always got a bit of a player influx whenever something big happened, but for the most part it has not really nearly reached the amount of interest it had in its beginning. in November, meaning last month, when it, I think, actually got into 1.0, it did reach a nice solid, what does it say, 4,000, around 4,000 players, compared to the initial interest of like 25,000 at once. It does kind of reflect the sort of the trend you will probably always going to see when you have something running for a long while, so that people just got used to it. Kind of saddening, mind you. Kinda expected a little bit more there, but well. So copies sold, let's see, owner estimations are somewhere between, I guess we can round this down to roughly 500k, which, as I said, considering we are talking still about a fucking porn game, a porn game that you cannot even buy in some countries, is pretty okayish. I would politely point out, as I said, you know, not gonna say anything too impressive under normal circumstances, but still gets the job done well enough, I would say. Now the fact that I think, yeah, I guess not only Germany but China would also be a potentially even far larger market that will probably also not see this game necessarily. And as for, let's see, there's mixed reviews. I would be interested to read a few of those, but alas, Steam will not actually allow me to look them up, so you will have to take a look yourself if you're interested. And apart from that, I think anything else of the other statistics is not really that interesting. You can basically clearly see that ever since its 1.0 release, it did garner a little bit of more interest. That will probably sooner or later. I did see some complaints about, as I said, some of the achievements not popping and some other small things, some crashes here and there. But considering the sheer amount of potential setups you could try to run this game on, that's always going to be a problem. With any sort of PC game, there are just far too many setups to satisfy all of them, so no comments there. I do think that the reviews feel a bit harsh. As I said before, you do have to keep in mind, first and foremost, this is a porn game. And usually you should probably apply that. Be a bit more generous. At least I would give it a... I would actually, as I said, you know, maybe not at full price, but would still recommend the product in and of itself. It does come along with an assholeish amount of nice little animations. And while I do think some more could be, you know, a bit more in general than just, you know, short little clips, basically. Full-on smack scenes, if you were to say so, would probably be more, but then again, there is still the option, of course, of more to come. Technically speaking, you could always just patch in some more. So I would probably also see it as a bit of an investment. Now, I do think there's a DLC for just the movies, I think. Yeah, Subwars 4K movies. Which of course is not really of interest to me, as I can't actually, well, can't actually go to the site. But well, even without that, the movies are still looking pretty great now that, considering that I was pretty much only really expecting them to, well, do well in one particular regard, namely the Schmexy department. Surprisingly well done the rest. Of course, there's always going to be a certain relying on the thing. For example, there's a giant fuckbot that you can encounter in this game that has, well, just as you expect, of course, a bit of a special dong that he does kind of like to use in space to push you around with in your little Phoenix, which is a fun experience all around. As I said, the game is rather underbashed in its very direct humor. And I think there's really not much more I do want to necessarily tell about it per se, only that I would like to kind of see this as or I would consider it to be a nice starting point potentially to actually bring up the rather lacking at this point Western market in this particular area back to the table again. And as I said before we started on this, only the 80s and 90s, everything from, strip poker, strip mahjong, strip Tetris, to point-and-click adventures with a bit of an erotic note, to whole management simulations with erotic elements to them were quite a thing. It's not like the West has never done this before, or has no experience with it, quite the opposite. Even fucking Germany had studios that did add a bit of smexy to their little games, which kinda then died. The West really doesn't do well with porn games any longer. We have some, as I said, and this is rather obvious with Studio FOW, some animation studios that do pretty good animations. And it's always nice to have an animation that is, well, free from the usual Japanese censorship. Because those pixels are kinda annoying. Well, easy enough to overlook in some cases, but you would still kinda like to, sometimes get the full experience, so to speak. And honestly, Cyberverse is a pretty good try at that whole idea of having a game that also has Smexy Times, although, as I said, I have, interestingly enough, chosen to put most of said Smexy Times in a very separate and you need to actively engage with it on your own kind of way, instead of making it the main core, making it part of the main core experience. Which means that you can technically play through this game completely. If you're not doing the devotion quests, you only basically get one smexy little scene with all of your waifus, namely the recruiting scene, and that's it. If you're not specifically then going to go and engage with the Pandora system, you will see pretty much nothing else. You'll still get all of the jokes, the humor, and stuff like that, but you're not really gonna see much else. Bold move indeed. I think it works. I think it works indeed. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you should indeed give it a view. Now I would do, of course, I would love actually nothing else than to just play a little bit of this. But the only way I could do that is to actually play the game, record it, then heavily cut out some things, and then probably upload it to YouTube, which I kind of feel would be missing the point. As I said, what I really would like to have a platform where I can actually play that live, so that we can actually have some fun with that, because I do believe we could have some fun with that, mind you. Sadly, most platforms really don't like that. I don't think Twitch will fucking hate me if I so much as try to set the category to that particular game. And I really don't want to risk it, to be fair. The other side of the argument, I also don't, want to start a fucking even now, a Pornhub account to find out how long and how difficult it is to get them to allow me to, live stream on their platform. Sounds like a pain in the ass, doesn't it? But if I just had a nice platform that would actually take the idea of an 18+ stream as an 18+ stream, where when I click a button that goes like, this stream is for 18+, they're actually like, okay, this is 18+, you can now stream 18+ shit. Well, it would be so fucking easy, but oh well. Oh, by the way, since I also had a full 8 days, and it did not take me fucking full 8 days to finish fucking Cyberverse, I also had enough time to play through fucking the Memories of Celceta in Ys again to get a few more achievements, which actually did pop once Steam realized, like, hey, look, we have internet again, so that's nice. Just as an aside note, it doesn't take you fucking 8 full days of just playing this game to get through it. It absolutely does not. And I think it was 8 days. Or was it 7 days that I was? Would look it up, but I don't really care too much. But it doesn't really take a week. Depending on how much you play and how much you engage with the side contents, it's probably going to be I don't even know, a matter of... I mean, it kinda depends, since you can't actually get through the game nearly as fast as you could if you weren't stopped from, progressing the text every time a character changes their posture during a talk. So you're probably still looking at, let's be generous here and say 10 hours. Probably a bit more now if you're playing it and actually you're trying to read the story. When you have a skip button, it's not like you cannot skip through every fucking sequence, but what's the point then? So, I would probably say it would take 12 hours. 12 hours is probably a better estimate, yeah. It would probably take 12 hours if you at least engage somewhat with the story. Probably more like 20 if you're a bit more excessive in your exploration. So if you actually, do take the long route around and actually do take a look at all of the little thingies, or well, most of the little thingies, and engage with the things in a more slow manner, then it would probably take you probably 20 hours. And I mean, for 20 hours of content and I don't know how many dozens of small little animations and bigger and longer animations in the Schmexy department. So there's that as well. I do think for the whole package, I mean, as I said before, I don't know if it's really haughty in a general sense, Steam sense. Animations-wise, probably yes. Practically speaking, you're probably also not bad off if you just wait for it to be on sale. Probably for the most part. I mean, as I said, this is for the very much so longest time a very, very complete, very nice experience of what a Western porn game can be like, in its simplicity, in its systems, in its actual gameplay. So if you are interested in that, then you might very well be able to justify the purchase, no questions adopted. On the other side of the spectrum, if someone like me and you're already saturated with Eastern variants of porn games and some of the better ones that you still have to play, and I will at some point get around to playing some of those, hopefully. And you probably don't have any direct need for it, and in which case, well, I mean, grab it on a fucking sale and be happy about it, I suppose would be the better option. That you will get quite the interesting experience, both from a pure story perspective as well as from a gameplay perspective, because it is absolutely serviceable. And if you wait a bit longer, of course, you also get the advantage that they can probably run a few more patches and, get some of the minor kinks out. I think during all of my playthrough, I had like one singular crash, which is nothing, considering we're still talking about a quote-unquote modern game anyway. So that's totally okay, as far as I'm concerned. Happens. Old games sometimes crash, it's not like that is a unique problem. So long as it's not crashing every fucking 2 minutes, I'm already more than happy. And one crash for a playthrough of, I don't even know, a fucking 20 hour plus is pretty fucking okay. The game also, has a tendency to, save often on its own. So it's not like you are losing much if the game suddenly does decide to crash. So yeah, very much modern game system, very much nice. We all know that that is one of the advantages of more modern titles, that you are actually somewhat more safe from losing hours and hours of content. Progress it is. And it was a problem in the past. And as I said, in this case, if the game had crashed and then told me like I would need to redo all of the Yeti Nebula again, I would probably have just quit then and there. I'll be fucking honest with you. Because that fucking takes a long while. It's really the one problem the game has, honestly. It's gameplay-wise the one thing that kind of bothers me the most. The individual combats are nice and short, feel satisfying in a way, because you can actually, you can bash through them for the most part without having to invest too much time thinking and planning. Some of the story quests, ground combat-wise, do require you to be somewhat more smarter, especially some of the, especially the last boss fight. It did kind of require me to rethink my strategies like 2 times, but then I had it beaten, so it's, not too difficult. but gets the job done. Space combat is basically the same for the most part. There are some special levels where you have to fly through special ground-based levels, basically, with obstacles and moving shit, that can crash you and stuff like that. But honestly, I don't remember encountering any sort of mission that took me more than like 2 or maybe 3 tries. And it was usually because I was fucking acting dumb, not concentrating, in order to finish. So it's really not that gets you. What gets you really is, as I said, the classical, the pure RPG thought process of going like, well, I now have like 100 fucking objectives I can investigate. And I'm gonna do now just that, instead of continue with the main story. Because of course you do. And for that, it's opening far too much at once. That is really something that should be... Honestly, what I would probably do, as a wild thought now, is I would probably keep during the main storyline. I would keep, because technically speaking, you can continue after the game. You get basically a quest in your quest log that goes like, yeah, you beat the game. It's like, oh look, okay, listen, if at this point I still want to engage with shit, if I still haven't leveled up one of my rifles and I want to get a devotion quest, then you can open up the whole for fucking Nebulas fully. Or is it actually 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually 5, isn't it? It's Dragon, then there's Griffin, then there is Kraken, then there is Hydra, and then there's Yeti. Yeah, it's 5. Fucking stupid, I should have said 5. Well, 5 Nebulas. And during the actual story time, you should probably keep it somewhat limited. You know, when you start out in the Dragon Nebula, you have like 20. That's like, okay, that's good. That is something I can deal with easily enough, because that means apart from the actually story missions that are taking place there, I have like, what, maybe 15 or so encounters between space combat and ground combat. Like, okay, I know each individual one doesn't take long. Cute, doesn't take that long, gets shit done, allows me to engage with these systems, but it doesn't overwhelm me. And you basically should have kept that whole system on that level, maybe a bit more. Now, go to the next one and go like, okay, listen, you now have like 30, and you go to the next one and it's like, well, look, you now have another 30 or 40. Then maybe, you know, go back and go like, now you have 25. And then you can go like in steps. You can go, okay, listen, you have beaten the game now. You have all the options in your hand now. We have opened up the rest of the systems to you. You now have an option of playing this ab absurdum, basically, outside of your main story. Instead of actually opening up beforehand, which is going to make people like me go like, now I need to engage with that before I can continue. It really does up the fucking game time by a fucking lot. But well, luckily enough, not everybody's like me, and I think most people will blaze through that and go like, yeah, I'm gonna continue. I would like to see more schmaxy waifus, so fuck that shit. Which is understandable. Their gamer card will be, you know, removed at some point, and they will be banned from the community, so never can call themselves a gamer again, because, well, that's not how a gamer does it, is it now? Really not? But well, point being, and I think this is going to be the point where I will light my pipe once more, ruminating a little bit more, do a final statement, and then excuse myself, because as I said, well, I haven't really gotten any, well, sleep yet. And I would rather like to lie down for an hour or two at some point. Also, I kind of had to decide to talk about this topic rather abruptly as well, so excuse me if I'm talking somewhat in circles, as I had, well, not much time to prepare my thoughts. Just was like, I'm probably not going to last long in any game, let alone a game that speaks French at me. And I do need a topic to talk about. I was like, well, it's a second. I just recently played something, didn't I? Yeah, honestly, I still maintain the basic opinion. I think, I mean, not the whole wait time, But it was actually quite the worthy project, all in all. Far longer than I thought it would in order to get this from a somewhat messy early access title into a decent, at the very least, one must say, finished product. Of course, it has lost a lot of the initial interest that it held due to its due to the niche it tried to apply itself to, namely being a unabashed porn game made by the West for the West, basically. A niche that has for a long time since been not really filled by anyone. And I mean, there's some more detailed things you could go with, for example, how the art style during the Devotion Quest kinda differs vastly in its sequences compared to what you had before. The actual smack scenes you get out of it are pretty good. I guess the only complaint would be that the actual Devotion Quest smacksy scenes are, well, movies of their own and instead are not directly available in the Pandora system, which is kinda strange considering that everything else is in there, apart from the recruitment, as I said before. Which also means that you don't have the option, because the nice thing about the whole Pandora system is, of course, that you're kinda, at least for the full sex scenes, you know, the ones that basically go from penetrating until somebody comes their brains out. With a nice little, you know, camera movement for you, where you can zap around the scene a little bit, plus the little thingy that you can move back and forth in order to, you know, move back and forward inside the actual animation sequence. And of course, a nice little come button, because you need a nice little come button in something like this. Probably would be good to have the whole, because the devotion text scenes are very involved. You know, we're talking about multiple positions and lots of work going in there. So having an option to actually replay that at my own leisure in details would probably be a nice thing to have, honestly. Instead of having to basically rewatch the whole movie, without any actual option to influence how the movie plays. Because there might be part of the sequence that I like better than the others, and I would rather like to, you know, watch that for a few minutes while I'm busy doing things, instead of having to basically rewatch the whole movie at whatever the fuck pace it sets. So that probably would be something that I would still consider to be something that would probably improve the experience and keep with the original spirit. Generally speaking, though, as I said, you know, maybe not at full price, but it is definitely an experience, and it is a unique experience. And as I said, the West has fallen. I think I saw that recently somewhere. And at least when it comes to porn games, the West has indeed rather fallen behind, as in many other games. I still find myself far more attached to lots and lots and lots of Eastern games these days, be they of older or more newer variants, that is, which doesn't really speak well for the, well, gaming industry as a whole. And so far as I'm concerned, I would even go so far as to call it a bold move into the right direction. It took a long-ass fucking while to get there, to put it fucking mildly. Because I think the original Kickstarter and shit were in 2021. And if you're looking down at the fucking calendar, that's a while ago. So as I said, it probably would have worked better in their favor if they had brought the game to a more full and complete state earlier. But then again, you have to understand, these people basically made their money with making, you know, nice looking orifices filled with nice looking dicks. really the kind of studio that would, you know, have a wealth of knowledge in how to actually tell a longer story, let alone telling said longer story in a game system, necessarily to this degree. And of course all the necessary animation work that is required in order to make nice looking spaceships, nice looking aliens, nice looking cutscenes for landing your ships and shit in a nice and alien looking environment. All of that doesn't just happen. All of that has to painstakingly be made, so I guess the actual time is perhaps reasonable, but it's not doing them any favor. The reason why, for example, and I do believe that why many the more famous Japanese developers still, although they probably could at this point really well afford to use something else, are still using the RPG Maker in all of its variants, is because A, they're used to it, and B, it's a ridiculously easy, well, technically speaking, engine to make a game on. It really doesn't require that much. It is literally simple enough that I could understand it for the most part. And if I can understand and get behind how to set up variables, yes, language is difficult, and switches and nonsense, then yeah, that speaks to its user-friendliness for quite a bit. It also means, of course, if you're already having systems in place that are well-known and easy to use, that it reduces the amount of time it takes for you to make a game by a lot. If you so far have only, you know, engaged with just animations, so basically just cutscenes, and you're now trying to use the fucking Unreal Engine to actually make a game, then yeah, there is a good chance that you will probably need a bit more time. But the question is, of course, always, since this is basically a Kickstarter project, or was a Kickstarter project in the past, so I guess we can say also already made a lot of money off of this, and they have now produced a final project. The question then becomes, of course, have they made necessarily not much, but do they have enough money made to potentially make a continuation or start another project in this particular direction? Because, you know, if we average this out and we go like, okay, so let's say that we have like 500k of purchases by $40 a piece, which, well, it's a nice amount of money, plus the Kickstarter money. But then again, you also have to consider that from that Kickstarter money onwards, they basically had to pay their employees and probably some licensing here and there, and, you know, the voice actors and all of the other nonsense for like 3 fucking years. I wonder if they are willing to do such a large project again. Because I personally would like to see it. I personally would also like to see, since, as I said, you know, many of their earlier animation works were, technically speaking, pretty good. Content-wise, not my cup of tea for the most part, while Subverse has a lot of stuff that is far more my cup of tea. There's actually quite some nice amounts of lovey-dovey smexy times in there, and I do kind of enjoy my, you know, lovey-dovey smexy times. Yes, I know, I'm vanilla bitch. I don't care. I do enjoy that. So that is something I would actually like to see more of. And as I said, you know, it's not like the gameplay in and of itself, in all of its forms, is not actually enjoyable. It is. There is too much of the combat, both combat systems, in too many senseless little encounters, yes, but the generous, in more general terms, the systems in and of itself are not bad. Boring at all, actually. Simple enough to understand, easily enough, even with half a fucking brain, while the other half of your brain is busy being horny for waifus. Allowing for enough complexity in combinations that you actually are not going to get bored if you're playing this in a bit more of a, you know, following the story kind of fashion. So yeah, I would actually like to see more of this. Now the problem is, of course, even more of that is not going to mean that I can actually, oh, I don't know, you know, buy it or Steam because, well, it's not an option. But there are always going to be other options. I hope. At the very least. Or if the Studio FOW will return back to its, well, root course, which is basically nothing else than making, well, pretty nice animations, as I said, you know. From a purely technical point of view, they've done some good shit in the past. Just not for everyone's taste, one must say. Oh well. There you have it. Now we had a nice little moment to, well, talk about stuff worse. Well, I mean, you know, you can say what you want, but at least for me, who had to spend, let's just round it down and go like, well, probably a week without internet, gave me something to do. And not just, you know, what you think I done. It also gave me some gameplay. Man, I really would like you to show you a bit more about this particular game, but I have a distinct feeling that is going to be probably not on this platform. Or YouTube for that matter. Actually, I do kind of want to see if people are playing this a bit more full on YouTube. I have actually seen, what was it again? Yeah, a playthrough of the, what was it called? The Three Charms. In case you're not aware, you can Google that. That's a Japanese porn game. Actually had an interesting gameplay because, well, instead of, you know, fighting the bad monster girls, you're kind of running away from them and using charms to bind them. It was interesting gameplay-wise, I must admit. But I did saw that somebody actually uploaded a playthrough of that on YouTube. I was like, yeah, that's gonna be interesting. You're taking out all the parts with the Smexy times and you're just going to show the gameplay, don't you? Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Honestly, when it comes to games, I kinda loathe the idea of playing something that I would then have to edit so fucking heavily that you're basically missing out on what is supposed to be the best parts of any such games, namely the fucking porn. Just so I can display it. I mean, you know, there's an argument to be made for being edgy and all of that, you know, go like, look, I played this porn game and it's on YouTube now. Well, you're not actually showing any of the porn. Wouldn't be my cup of tea to put it like that. Also feels like, you know, I would be kind of like, I mean, I could make a fucking nice maxi thumbnail for it. Or borderline, going really borderline there, no problem. And YouTube would probably start complaining about it again because YouTube fucking hates that shit. I remember I did this for the Gothic 1 thumbnail. Because, you know, if you know Gothic 1, then you know that there's precisely one schmexy little picture in that game. And I, of course, wanted to use that on the thumbnail. And YouTube was like, no, you're a fucking nobody. You're not gonna get that fucking shit on my platform. I was like, okay, fair enough, YouTube. Fuck you. I've seen far worse things by some of the bigger ones on your side, though. Oh, well, complaints aside, about how the world is unfair and how those who have more sway get away with more shit than, well, the old average. I think I'm gonna take a few more drags off the pipe and give you some more final thoughts, but I think for the most part, I think we have kinda looked at most of the parts of Surface. And of course, you know, since we now have a channel exclusively for my rambling, and this is most definitively me rambling for, I think at this point for like 2 hours, this shit will also go, of course, on the YouTube side of things. So, in case you haven't seen the whole unedited nice experience of me rambling about a fucking porn game for 2 hours, then, well, you will get your opportunity at a later date. I just need to cut this out from the larger stream and then put it on YouTube. Don't worry, I'm not gonna edit it. You're gonna get the fucking nice and unfiltered version. Because if I start censoring myself saying words, bad words, then that would be absolutely laughable. Wouldn't it be? And I really do mean laughable. Actually, that reminds me, with all the playtime from the early access. Yeah, look, even with all the playtime from the early access, I basically only have like 59.1 hours of playtime in Subverse. So, Yeah, I think you can pretty much finish the game in 20 hours, easy enough. If you engage heavily with it. Just the main story about an ability to forward the text as you are at your leisure. For the most part, yeah, I think 10 to 12 hours just for the main story is probably a decent guess. If you actually watch all that shit. And read all of that shit. And at least do the fucking devotion quest at the end, which does kind of require you to leveling up your waifus to, I don't even know, do they need to be 40? I think Blythe wasn't at level 40, and I got her devotion quest, I think she was 35. Which would still mean that you need to level up your waifus to at least 35, which will take some time and some probably extra cruising. Ah, better. Now that I think about it, yeah. Even just introducing Kili would be a problem if I were to stream this, isn't it? I was just thinking, you know, through the game, through the story of Subverse for a moment, and was like, even if we were to cut out the sex, would we be able to stream this on Twitch? Probably not. Simply because, well, some of the outfits are a bit too borderline probably for Twitch's poor little eyes. Man, I hate this platform sometimes. I made this point previously, but I will make this point again. If you have an option telling me that there's a button I can push to mark my stream as 18+, and please, for the love of God, actually mean that if I mark this and if people go like, yes, I know this is 18+ stream, I want to watch 18+ stream, and at least allow me to do 18+ stuff a bit more, you know. Half a nipple slip should not be a problem, but if you read through the nice little TOS of Twitch, you will see that that is indeed not the intended purposes. Which means you could take this option out of Twitch altogether, because it's fucking useless and pointless. Oh well. Not the first time I made this complaint. Probably it's not gonna be the last time I will make this complaint. But well. Also, speaking of porn, in case you're wondering, we do have a nice new little artist, of course, featured most prominently right below my poor little self. A rather, let's see at this point, rather old one in the high art of making schmexy art. To the point where that artist has a very, actually multiple series, one of them rather long, with over 10 episodes of pure unrelated fucking hentai for your leisure. And believe you me, I mean, at this point, if you know, you know, you will recognize this particular art style. In fact, I could have taken a picture from the hentai and used that, but that would be too easy. After all, it's not like I'm sitting here trying to promote any hentai artists, so it's just that I, you know, choose a random one from my large collection. I mean, I actually need to change the external drive, because I have one external drive just for fucking waifu pictures, and there's a lot on there. Gigabytes worth of that. And of course one where I keep, you know, some emergency reserve anime for cases when the internet decides to fuck off to wherever I don't even know, and leaves me stranded in a world without it, so I still would like to watch some anime. I mean, I used the past 7 days, I watched Lucky Strike again. Was it Lucky Strike? Lucky Star. Lucky Strike is the cigarettes I once smoked. My apologies, Freudian slip there. And 86. 86 is kinda nice. Problem is, once you rewatch something like this, it's going to take you a while before you can reasonably engage with it again. Sad as that might be. Otherwise it just doesn't have the same impact. Well, can I said there's only 2 relatively short seasons of that. You could have really expanded. You could have spent quite a few episodes, as I said, with some of the battles. And with some of the racism, mind you. You can never really, you know, express the racism in enough nice little ways in order to hammer home just how racist these fucking people are. Would have been great. I would have enjoyed that. I'm also showing some of the 86ers just going like, well, fuck that shit, we're out. Would have been pretty nice. But oh well. But oh well indeed. Also, now to think about it, is a nice little, you know, word. Considering that we are in Sub-Wars are playing, you know, in a faraway galaxy, there's surprisingly reasonable amounts of tentacles. Just in case you were wondering, I'm pretty sure I've seen all of the scenes that you can get unlocked. Of course, I only did it for scientific purposes. There was no personal interest, no, I just did it for, you know, research. And I can tell you, there is a very reasonable amount of tentacles involved in those Smexy times. But, you know, honestly, I would have probably gotten a bit faster with that. Considering that, you know, I already have created quite the nice little backdrop for making that. And there's also the kind of weird thing that, you know, Lily kind of considers herself the mother of all Manticores, and she has a distinct tendency to equip them with very interesting digs. For enjoyment, of course. Why else would you give a horrible monstrosity a dig other than, you know, enjoyment? And there's Terran. I do love Terran. Her introduction is great. Because she's an ICAF, and she basically, you know, has a bit of a species-ingrained tendency to get very horny when she smells a solar, or basically a human. And, well, really has a tendency to get off the dead shit. Introduction is great. Captain wakes up, goes like, who the fuck schlicked on my fucking face? Quite literally. That's the introduction. There are quite a few humorous moments in Sub-Wars. I must admit that much at the very least. You know, you can say everything else about it if you so desire. But these very direct, very on the nose, and honestly very humoristic approach to this whole thing is honestly pretty fucking great. It's probably not the sort of content you can enjoy all the time. It's probably not the sort of content you can enjoy en masse. So I don't think this is going to, you know, spawn multiple titles that go that, you know, full fist in your ass kind of style. Because it's going to fall flat at some point or another. But at least for a once in a while trip, it's actually pretty fucking good. At least for that purpose, I cannot lie, it is absolutely fucking good. Just as I said, you know, if that is the sort of reading I would have to go through multiple times in a row for an extended period of time, I would get sick of it probably relatively quickly. But there's no chance in hell we are gonna see that happening at all. I do believe. Now then, it is getting rather late. It's 2 in the fucking afternoon, and I've been long since overdue for a nice little nap. Now there is a good chance as ever that by the time I wake up, the internet will have decided to fuck off again. I can't actually promise you anything more today. No, technically speaking, any other day. I can basically just hope and pray and, you know, try my hand at some more life sacrifices for the goods of the internet. But assuming at least that the internet will last, then by tomorrow we'll play some good old-fashioned Expeditions Rome, as we haven't yet gotten a chance to do so, and I had that sitting in my library and installed, meaning that it actually takes fucking space off my hard drive, space that I could otherwise use for waifus or shit. And I would at least want to, you know, take a nice little look. The strategy was nice enough to sponsor it. I have no idea so far about it more than, well, I'm assuming it's going to be a game that's set in Rome, because when you boot it up into the main menu, you see a Roman soldier standing there, so there's that. And I think I'm not going to look up anything else about it, because that kind of gives you the nice uninformed, is probably a good word for that, uninformed and completely new and springy opinion right from the horse's mouth, without any sort of, briefing. It's the Expeditions Rome thing that you bought for me quite a while ago, and I never got around to play. And I have installed it, and I've booted up the game, went into the main menu, and I kind of changed the settings, and then I was like, yeah, we're going to play it the next time, and then it never happened. Yeah, see, I really would. I do kind of every single time I see the shortcut on my desktop, I feel kind of guilty about it, because I kind of would like to take a look. I really kind of want to take a look. So, assuming the internet is working tomorrow, we'll play that for a little bit. I don't know if we're gonna have another talk session. I do kind of like my talk sessions, because it allows me to ramble like a fucking motherfucker. But kind of depends on if I find a topic I want to talk about, doesn't it? We'll see. For the moment, it is the plan, and then over the next couple of days, of course, we're gonna start the next Ys game. It's going to be Oath of Felghana, which is going to require some pre-talk before we actually start playing the game, to explain to you some of the more interesting aspects about its past and shit. But that is definitely going to happen. It's actually the one thing I hated the most the last week or so, because I really wanted to start the next Ys game. Then I was like, but I don't really want to start the next Ys game without streaming it. So I kind of held back. That I played Subverse. You can judge for yourself if that was better or worse, I suppose. Oh well. Joking aside, that is the plan, and as for the rest, we now have a reduced goal for playthrough of the nice little Class F09, and it's a secondary incantation of only just $30, because, well, since one of them is now in my possession thanks to strategy, we shall thank him for that very much so, of course, it does seem appropriate to lower the price just by that. This goal is of course going to run until the end of the year, and if we can't reach it, then, well, worst case scenario, we are just going to take a nice little quick review look at the one we have now, and basically keep the rest up for bits again, because right now I have nothing else on my list that I really want to put as a goal. Of course, you are yourself free to propose a new goal. I will keep the authority to price set goal in as I see fit. But you know me, for the most part I seem, or at least I try to be rather reasonable. I was about to say, I seem to get undercut quite a lot, but oh well, a problem is on my side, isn't it? But well, topic for another day. A brutal market and how it is a cutthroat society is definitely a topic we can talk about at length at some point in the near future. I should not say that there aren't any topics I can potentially see myself talking about, but I would rather like to actually look into a little bit more before I make it into topic. And also I need to, every single time I make a nice little talk, I need to decide which artist to present as a nice little, you know, a visual thing. Of course, I'm not going to tell you who that fucking artist is, as I will not in neither past nor future. But, I mean, just with the information I gave you, it usually shouldn't be that hard to find them. Really not now. To be fair, especially not this one, because this one, as I said, you know, he has a fucking long-lasting series of hentais made of his art, so that one is really fucking easy to find. Not to think about it, they actually made some fucking good shit of that. To be fair. To be fair. C strategy. Actually, I don't know. If the laws ongoing in your place are a little bit different, then technically speaking, if you go to Steam, you should be able to buy Subverse. If you can buy Subverse, then you can probably buy other kinky games, which means that you can technically gift me kinky games. Potentially. I don't know if that is the case. I can tell you that I can't buy them off Steam. I mean, I guess I could go to some other site, buy a Steam code, and then use that to compensate it. Actually, How about GOG? You're making a good point. Can I buy that on GOG? Come here, GOG. Say, GOG, do you... And now I can't buy that on GOG. Yeah, no, I can't even buy that off fucking GOG. Man, I'm sad being in Germany. Never before was I so sad to be in Germany. I mean, I already thought I was sad being in Germany because German subtitles for anime suck. But now I'm really feeling even more sad being in Germany because I can't even buy porn games. I'm a fucking adult. I can literally go out in a fucking sex shop and buy myself a fucking 12-inch dildo to shove up my fucking ass. No fucking problem, no questions asked. If I want to buy a fucking porn game on the internet, like I can't even exit DL site from fucking Germany. I need to go through a fucking VPN in order to just go there and use some fucking points I still have left to buy something. But I'm gonna make a fucking giant fucking... Yeah, well, once I'm big enough to, you know, actually have people screaming and shouting about it, I'm going to make a whole fucking stream just pointing out all of the unnecessary nonsense that Germany does to its people when it comes to this particular fucking nonsense. I mean, seriously. Can't even buy fucking Subwars. And as far as porn games go, mind you, if you're checking all of the content that it presents into account, that isn't even not even close to the worst shit I've seen in a fucking porn. As I said, I've played Guru porn games at some point. Ever since then, I knew what that meant, and I didn't want it to go back. I will never make a bet concerning any such game again, as that was a horrible amount of time I had to spend engaged with that. And mind you, it's still better than the alternative, because as long as you actually have pictures towards that, your brain doesn't start being creative. If you just have text and you let your fantasy go free, your fantasy can conjure pictures far worse than anything humanity has ever drawn on a fucking canvas. Fucking Germany though. I hate Germany sometimes. Just saying, you know. Man, do I fucking hate that. Kinda annoyed that I can't actually get it off of fucking GOG as well. That kinda sucks, man. Nothing can ever be easy. Nothing can ever be easy at all. I mean, seriously, the irony though. We have literally stores that sell goods for smexy times. Out on the streets, they can literally put fucking lingerie and shit in their fucking display window, showing it to the rest of the world. That's not a problem. You can dress a mannequin in the most smexy fucking silk shit and latex shit and whatever the fuck else you can come up with. Present it to the outside world, and that's not a fucking problem. Neither for our children, nor for our fucking adults. But God beware. An adult could buy some fucking porn games off the internet. Swear to God, at some point in the future, people will rise up against the government. Ash will be part of the reason why they rise up against the government, because they're like, well, we're kind of fucking getting sick and tired of your bullshit. You bloody fucking motherfuckers, just because you don't want to be frigid motherfuckers who don't dare to touch their little fun bits even with a fucking 10-foot bowl because they're afraid of being tainted. Yeah, the rest of us kinda would like to just, you know, some fun once in a while. And that's really the irony is. The irony is really the best part of it. It's the only part that makes it somewhat fun. As I said, you know, one day, when was it? Was it a year or two ago, but I suddenly couldn't exit the DL site any longer? I was like, what's wrong? And then you Google shit, and then you're like, it's a German problem. Why is it a German problem? Well, we don't fucking know. Something has happened. Something has, you know, raised their finger accusingly and went like, no, 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 no. Not in Germany. The poor people actually in charge of that particular site, and ever since the site has decided that, okay, well then not Germany any longer. And then came Steam. I guess then came, technically speaking, GOG. I think GOG actually lasted the longest before they were like, okay, yeah, we're not gonna show anyone from Germany anything that is mildly arousing. I guess I must assume that the poor, fragile German mankind, mans of Germany can't handle a nice pair of tits once in a while. Without, you know, starting raising their right arm and shouting about the usual. Mostly invading Poland. Or something. Can only make assumptions at this point. But it is idiotic. It is stupid. And honestly, it's that sort of shit that really, really, really annoys me. I'll not even go into it. At this point, you know, it's not even about getting, you know, yourself some nice little fab material or anything. It's not even about that. Because I still get my DL side shit if I want to. It's just a lot more complicated now. And I will get my shit, mind you. I haven't bought anything in a long while, mostly because I don't have fucking money this year, but you get the point. But it's the way that you get treated. It really pisses me off. And that we treat this whole fucking topic, basically. It's annoying because it does kinda imply, somewhat direct and somewhat indirect, depending a bit on how you want to look at it, how they are kind of treating us like children. And it is really not something I feel in any way, shape or form is acceptable. Now tell me I have the right to drink my liver into oblivion. I can smoke so much that my lungs collapse. All of that is absolutely fucking okay, and you're not gonna stop me doing that at all. Same actually with anything else. I can, you know, as I said, you don't see the problem with me going into the next best sex shop and buying such nice 12-inch spiked dildos to shove up my rear side. That is not a problem at all. In fact, if I manage to wound my rectum with that, you're going to treat me free of charge. Great. But that is a no-go. Are you sure? It's the same thing with the whole banned content in games in general. I'm like, listen, I'm an adult. If I want to engage with something more risque or something more borderline, it should be absolutely within my purview to do so. As obviously, I am apparently responsible enough to be allowed to fucking vote. If I have the power to potentially decide how my government looks, then I'm pretty sure I'm adult enough to engage with something that is, you know, borderline. Like, for example, the Third Reich nonsense. Yes, of course I should be able to engage with that, even in a game format. Because you should assume that I'm adult enough to be able to deal with that without, you know, falling back and getting heart attack the first time I see a fucking swastika. Same with titties. Just assume that I'm old enough that I will not fall back down and get a heart attack from seeing a nice pair of titties or some people engaging in, you know, in smexy times. Be it in 3D or in 2D, that's not going to fucking happen. Oh well, I could sit here for another hour and just complaining about this. I can see myself doing that. In Germany. Fucking assholes. Well. Oh, then as I had kind of said like 10 or 15 minutes ago. Kinda. I do feel the rather distinct need that I need to lay down and get myself a nice little nap, and then I'll have to probably start doing some cleaning, because, well, I kinda wanted to do that today anyway, and I kinda just randomly decided to shop in some streaming time, so I don't regret that, but I still kinda need to get that done. Let me say it like this, strategy. Every fucking teenager from the ages of, I think the youngest I've ever seen was like a 6-year-old, has a fucking smartphone in their hand with internet access, and usually unfiltered internet access. We literally have fucking 10 and 12-year-old fucking children having seen probably more hardcore porn than I have. I mean, they haven't seen Rotten.com, because that time's over. But, as I said, the internet is for porn. There is a lot of it. And it's literally just... what was I looking? I was looking at something like a week ago on Google. And I'm pretty sure the fourth or fifth links I saw led to a porn site. It's really easy to stumble upon porn. So even the argument like, oh yeah, we're doing it for the children, we don't want the children to engage with fucking pornography at a young age. It's like, yeah, then take away their fucking smartphones. Or make it mandatory that their fucking parents install some security software. Because if you don't, the fucking children will see an asshole. They will fucking see a fucking bonanza festival of fucking dicks raping some poor chick's ass. I can tell you that is going to happen inevitably. Yeah, do you see why the internet is for porn strategy? Humans made the internet. They realized, hey, that is a great way to store massive amounts of pornography. Why would we do that? Oh yeah, right, because we're a fucking species that also does fucking like to fuck. I swear to God, so long as the government doesn't make it mandatory that children only get restricted internet access on their fucking smartphones, I don't believe for a single second, not even a nanosecond, that the government has any fucking care to try to keep our children away from pornography. This is just, at the end of the day, a fucking annoying power play going like, we're in German now, we don't like this shit. Actually, this kind of ties nicely into the whole plot of Subverse, because in this particular thing, Germany, the German government would be like the fucking empire in fucking the galaxy of Prodigium. Because they're like, yeah, we don't like the smexy things. They need to be banned. We cannot have people have smexy times. That is disgusting. Man, that's actually a fucking nice way of going back to the whole Subverse thing, isn't it? Shit, I didn't even see it, I don't know. Yeah, they're actually fucking old-timers for the most part. I think the youngest politicians are like 40 plus. At least the ones in the federal government. There are some outliers in the individual state governments, and I think on a local level you might find somebody maybe in their 30s if you're really lucky and you look hard enough. Most of these fuckers are old enough that they should know better. Most of these fuckers are old enough that they have probably jerked off so many times, you will need far more than just your hands and feet to count. I guarantee it. And these motherfuckers then go like, no, we're doing it for the children. You're not doing it for the fucking children, you asshole. If you really wanted to do something for the children, get them away from the fucking smartphones and the internet, because the internet is so choke. Literally, I looked for something, what was it again? I think it was a bit of a specialized term or something that I was looking up, because I really couldn't understand what it was about. It was a term for some of the, one of the internal organs in Latin, I think. And so I just typed it into Google and went like, okay, what's that? And then the first few results were like, okay, this is, I fucking don't know, part of your of your intestines. I fucking remember what it was. But I swear to God, the fifth or sixth, or was it even the fourth? I don't fucking remember. Entry led to a fucking porn site. I could tell. Mine was pretty obvious. How many? Yeah, I don't think there are many gamers in our politics, because otherwise politics would probably look a bit better when it comes to protecting our gamers from quite a few very scammy things that are happening. I mean, you know, they all. I see the last plenum, you know, when everyone has to be has to be gathered, and these people play with their phones all the time. They know how fucking Twitter works. I can assume these motherfuckers should at least stop fucking censoring things. I swear to God, if we were to collect every fucking politician's fucking smartphone and look through the shit that they look up on their smartphone, probably while they're sitting there in plenum, I'm sure we're gonna find some porn. I guarantee you we're gonna find some porn. Probably some, you know, I don't know, what's the modern equivalent, oh yeah, I know, an OnlyFans subscription here and there, you know, some of that feed stuff that everybody's apparently into. I guarantee to you, we would find many, many very uncomfortable things on their fucking phones. And then what? Wouldn't it kind of undermine all of that nonsense about not allowing adults to engage with adult content? Oh yeah, it would. Fucking hypocrites, all of them, I swear to God. But as I said, you know, this is really a topic you can... Okay, listen. You have yourself a smartphone, right? I have myself a smartphone. If our politicians are smart enough to use a smartphone to go onto Twitter and post shit that goes like, yeah, we're so much better, please vote for us, then I'm pretty sure they know how easy it is to find porn. Because they at least have somewhat engaged with the internet. At that point, if they look down and realize that their own children, their own minor children, they are not adults yet, are in possession of a smartphone and unlimited access to the internet, it only takes the addition of 1 + 1 and horny teenager to understand that, yeah, they're probably going to find some fucking porn out there. And it's really not a good idea to engage with that heavily in such a young age, because it's going to, well, drastically alter your perspective on sex and shit, and can probably make your first time rather disappointing. As porn has a tendency to, I don't know, over-display what sex is supposed to be, and I don't think it is appropriate for somebody for the first time to expecting some fucking, I don't know, you know, anal sex or something. That seems like something a bit too advanced that comes later down the line. However, there's a rather interesting trend of shit like that actually happening. Holy shit, I never thought we end up there. Man, we really are a horny species. Listen, all you really need to do, and that is actually the problem, is, for example, a platform like DL site. When you want to enter it, you have to actually click a button that says, yes, I'm 18. For the longest time that was enough, because once you click that, the legal responsibility is on you. You have said you're 18, so well, if you're not, that's on fucking you. The problem is that the German government then went like, okay, hey, people at Valve, people from Steam, you know, that's not enough. Do you have any way to actually certify that they're 18? Do you have a way to check their, you know, ID or something to make sure they're actually 18? And the people at Valve were managing Steam and like, no, we don't. We don't need that. Germany then meant like, yeah, but then you can't let them access because that is, you know, not safe. And so Steam went like, well, fuck Germany then. I'm just gonna take all of this maxi out. I mean, listen, this is the whole irony. I could do this while I was still 16 and 14, you know. I can go outside on the street, walk into the city, go up to the next best sex shop, quite literally a shop that literally deals in nothing else but pornography, be it on a DVD, be it on Blu-ray, be it fucking blow-up dolls, be it sex toys, be it fucking lingerie and all the other nonsense that you ever could need or have need of in your sexual capacity. Go in there without any ID check whatsoever, probably have a bored employee sitting somewhere at the cash register not giving a flying fucking fart what I'm doing it, pick up the most hardcore and graphical pornography of sketch and whatever the fuck else, check it at the cash register, pay in cash and go out without ever having checked my age via an ID at fucking all. Not a fucking problem. Why then, if I go on the internet, should it be any different? If I want to engage with something that nature, I should be more than able to do so, because it is expected that I am adult enough that I can vote, that I can drink, that I can smoke, that I can literally engage with the actual act of sex with other people of an adult age. That's so fucking... it's so fucking annoying, honestly. Just that the double standard alone is killing me. Literally. That sort of hypocrisy is really just fucking with me. probably not a good idea to create an incentive for children because, well, I don't know how big to those. If the system at least would be reasonably done, if at least we had created a system that would actually work in any capacity to actually keep our fucking children, our fucking minors away from hardcore pornography so that our children can grow up, grow close and, you know, experience sex first before they have, you know, certain expectations ingrained in them that are absolutely not realistic, that alone would probably be a good thing. And if that were the end goal, and, well, if that were actually something we could achieve like this, I'd be actually willing to accept the extra hassle of having to go through, you know, either third-party sites or having to employ VPNs or other nonsense in order to get what I want. But it's not. It's neither the end goal, at least not the stated end goal, because, and here comes the fun part, no goal was ever stated. You just one day cannot exit a site, and this site will tell you that they don't know why Germany takes such a piss at them, and the German government will not answer the question of why and who precisely has actually taken action on this particular regard. Meaning, we all know something is going on, somebody in the German government has decided to contact this particular site, told them to, you know, fuck off and change their things to our standards, or, you know, stop selling in Germany. Otherwise get fined into oblivion. The public doesn't even get to know who did this for what fucking reason. Really? Really? Do you wonder why ever less people are willing to fucking vote? If that's the sort of government you are, if that's the sort of dealings you do engage with, you think I'm the only one who realized that Sunday I couldn't exit the site any longer? You think I'm the only one who saw that the Steam shop suddenly had a conspicuous amount less of porn games on it? Same for GOG. Oh, quite a few people who realized that and see the double standard, or the, well, lack of any standard basically. My serious strategy, you don't actually need any sort of porn to get the idea. You just grow up, you become a teenager, you let the hormones do their work, and before you know it, our little growing up boys and girls will learn how the fucking works. It will be clumsy, and it will probably not be the most satisfying experience, because the first time is always going to be somewhat haphazard, so to speak, but that's kind of how it goes. That's how it goes the first time. That's kind of just the thing. Same with the whole masturbation thing, you know. If you grow up without porn, that doesn't mean that you don't, you know, realize that touching certain places feels rather nice. So, you don't need a guidebook for that. The only thing that porn does, in its unfiltered form, is going to give you horrible ideas about what sex is supposed to be. Just really a bad idea. No matter how many of those nice little ladies you see that like to stuff stuff up their ass, most virgin girls are actually not really that interested in shoving fucking massive dildos up their ass. Pretty much. And honestly, the rest, you'll kind of have to learn through experience. Nobody gets born with the ability to know how to maneuver a relationship, how to maneuver a conflict, how to maneuver anything. That's just all skills you have to acquire by yourself. But especially when it comes to intimacy, you know, when it comes to actually being close to another person, if you get that fucking ruined in your views on how that is supposed to be by overinflated porn. By the way, inflation porn is a thing. Just wanna, you know, give you another horrible image for your mind. Or by the overinflated images and ideas that porn tries to give people, it's not good. I mean, you're going to learn one thing or another, you know, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to learn from your mistakes, you're going to learn how to set borders, what is acceptable, you're going to learn what is experimental enough that it still interests you, but not so much above what you are willing to do, you know, to find a compromise with your partner. I mean, maybe, you know, maybe you find a partner who really is into the idea of shoving giant fucking dildos up her ass, or maybe she has the idea of shoving them up your ass. That can happen, yes, obviously. And it should be up to the people to decide and slowly try out what is good for them and what not, without having any sort of fucking idiotic things shoved into their little innocent minds before they had any chance of making their own experiences. And as I said before, if that was the stated goal of all of these measures, and if these measures would be in any way reasonably bring us closer to that goal, I would still be willing to forgive and forget and go like, okay, listen, you're making everything more of a hassle for me, but I will still be okay with that because the subscribed to end goal is actually something I agree with. Because I do believe that overindulgence in porn at a young age is not good for children. Absolutely not. Of course, by overindulgence, I mean the, well, monobride. It's not like in the fucking past, you know, where you giddily had a few minutes to check out rotten.com and get some really scary images that will haunt you and give you nightmares. Or, you know, the few moments you had where you could take a nice little look at a more adult magazine before the shop owner would, you know, politely, or not so politely, make you exit the store. But I mean the full-on hardcore porn that you can just access as easily as you breathe nowadays, from pretty much any device, and even devices that yet are mobile. Double standards. Or, more correctly, as I said before, no standards at all. But seriously, imagine the situation, you know, there's a site you have visited for fucking years at this point, you know, where you bought yourself some hentai games here and there, maybe even, you know, a few mangas that you couldn't find anywhere else. I mean, they're all going to be in Japanese, so it's not like you're buying them for the fucking great story content for the most part. But, you know, more for the art. And one day, you can't access the site again, and you start researching why that is, and you find out it's just a German problem. Then you try to find out what has happened. And all the information you get is that something German has approached them and told them quite nicely to fuck off, to either change their systems completely, which they're not going to do for just one single country. So that would be fucking idiotic misinvestment, considering that Germany is probably not the biggest buyer, I mean. But you don't get any information. You don't see which agency, which ministry has decided to actually do this, who has actually given the okay for this. I would like to see the government paper that says to contact them and tell them to do what we want them to. And I want to see who fucking signed on that shit. I want to see which ministry was involved. I want to see which politician was involved, because I would like to know who to never ever ever fucking vote for again and make sure that he knows my fucking hatred every fucking single moment of every fucking day, basically. Keeping such things shady is not a good way to do it. Fucking very bad idea. It makes me mistrustful. Even more mistrustful than I already am of the government. Which is why people have speculated what the fuck precisely has happened. I mean, with Steam it's a bit more obvious. There have been far more debates about it. And I can only assume that for most of the other platforms it's basically the same. Same MO that they applied here, but we still don't actually know who is doing the work. And I would like to know that. I really would like to know that. Because I want to make sure that if I tell people who to not vote for, I A, have a name, and I can give them a good fucking reason for why to not vote. And believe you me, I know more than enough fucking perverts in Germany. There's quite a few of them. I have a distinct feeling not nearly as much as they were in the past, but you know, it's another matter altogether. God fucking damn it, do I hate it. At one point I will find this particular motherfucker, and I will punish him. Because I will talk long and hard about his obvious problems in the bed. Because, you know, he's probably gonna be some impotent motherfucker. I have no doubt about it. Probably can't get it up apart from the most hardcore shit, and he really would like nobody else to enjoy it. Probably the kind of guy who was into scared, if I had to be honest. I can see that. I can absolutely see that. But well. give you a future example. If we should reach the point when we all have nice little AI sex bots that we can take home and have fun with, Germany is probably the only country who's not as good. I mean, Germany and China, to be fair. And it's never a good thing if you are fucking in the same category as China. We should have learned as much. For some reason we don't. Actually, if I look this up here, can I actually see this? Come here, little Subverse statistics side. Can I see if you're not available? Yes. Restricted countries. China and Germany. Congratulations, Germany. You are now on the level of motherfucking China. Comes to your censorship. Congratulations, Germany. You won the prize again. Really not a good one. Ugh. The fact that we have ever reached that particular point. Man. Where are the early 2000s? I miss the early 2000s. I enjoyed the early 2000s. The early 2000s were fucking great, man. Massive anime boom in fucking Germany. Anime getting some of the fucking prime time slots and fucking on pretty much dozens of fucking commercial TV stations. You got anime from fucking Monday to Sunday all throughout the week at different time slots with quite the variety to choose from. You even get fucking bands making cover songs to that. I really need to find that fucking Sailor Moon band again. Just to show you what I mean. And the internet, well, was still pretty fucking younger and more rotten if you choose the joke there. But also a lot more freer, which was kind of enjoyable. How did Germany finally manages to catch up with things? The first thing they do is censor things. Yeah. Haven't really learned any new tricks in, I don't know, fucking... Yeah. I don't want to say 80 years or so, but yeah, kinda, haven't we? And on the other side, they're claiming like, oh look, we have all for this nonsense, you know, we love different people of different sexualities and all of that. Yeah, you don't, but you like to pretend you do. That's fucking all it is. Make it better PR, I suppose. Go like, we love all of the perverts. We really do. Vote for us, please. Actually, that reminds me, do you have anything colored actually, little artist? I did look at some of your pictures earlier. Anything that really hammers home your art style? Yeah, that picture, but that has a dick in it. Once more, I have a good idea for an artist for the next talk session, when I would like to produce another artist, but once more, said artist has an unfortunate tendency to not understand that sometimes a cover would be better off without any, you know, dicks in it. And I do like to use something that is somewhat characteristic of the actual artist, because, well, for some reason that kinda just works better, doesn't it? Doesn't really seem like it. I mean, there are more than enough variants in black and white, but I do like some color variants, of course. I guess that technically speaking works. I mean, it's not really covered, the first page, but it's in color. And there's actually nothing exposed on it. Yeah, I think I will use that picture for the next one. I do kind of need to crop it a little bit, otherwise you get all the text bubbles in there. But I do have a new artist. Now I might actually find something even better if I look far enough, but honestly I'm a bit too tired to stare at massive amounts of porn. But I do rather feel the pull, so to speak, of the nice, well, at the moment relatively cold, but soon to be warm bed, because, well, line it a little bit, your body will do the heating on of its own. By the way, how cold is it actually at the moment? It is... well, a mild 6 degrees outside. That's quite acceptable. No, I have acclimatized, basically, to the new cold relatively well, actually, I must say. At first I was like, this is going to be fucking uncomfortable, but, well, I learned a few tricks at the moment. I'm only up to 3 layers on the upper body at the moment. And you know, it might be a bit lesson from the grandparents, but I do have a nice long set of underwear that's rather thick. Keeps pretty damn warm, I must say. And I'm only wearing 2 pairs of socks because, well, I mean, the ground is kinda cold. But well. I don't even feel that my fingers are getting that cold that quickly any longer, which is probably a pretty good sign, all things considered. Might just get through this month as well without any heating. Because let's be honest here. One bill for heating once a year costs pretty much over half of what you would earn in any sort of entry position in retail, for example. I must admit that is fucking it's fucking massive. It's fucking massive, man. Fucking massive indeed. To the point of ridiculousness. Because usually, with any sort of entry position, it is assumed that you're going to pay at least half of your money on rent already, which would mean if you then get a month where you already pay half your money for your rent and then have to pay over half your money for the heating that you've done during the past year, you do kind of end up in a twist situation where it's like, well, shame that I don't have any money this month. In fact, I have negative money now. What am I gonna eat now? It's difficult, isn't it? Well, yes, I'm gonna hopefully get at some point a sponsorship by somebody making long woolen underwear. Because I can attest to, you know, my grandparents were up to something with that shit. It keeps you pretty fucking nice and warm. Actually, you know, goes up all the way to the belly button and all the way down to the larger part of my fucking leg, so yeah, keeps pretty warm. Keeps pretty warm indeed. And hey, I mean, you know, if I have to live in a world where I have to wear 2 pairs of socks every day, all fucking can live with that. Yeah, it's a fucking small price to pay for, you know, not paying an excessively unreasonable amount of money next year. Oh, I must admit, now that I've looked a little bit deeper, this particular artist, he does make nice art, no question about it, but he has an unfortunate tendency to, well, either do not any cover at all, which means we're gonna have to start with Lego. And those that have been colored, pretty much the only option I have. Because anything else is kinda... oh, wait a second, what about this one? This one starts nice and easily enough, doesn't it? I feel the coloring kinda ruined it though. You might be thinking it can't be that hard to just find a random, you know, nice little depiction of any sort of artist and go like, look, this gets the job done, but there's actually quite a bit of a thought process involved in that. You know, something that displays what I mean without actually displaying what I mean, because when if I show you what I mean, I'll probably get yeeted off of the internet, or the more proper side of the internet, which includes pretty much any sort of streaming platform, in roughly 0.5 seconds. Which, as I said once more, is really annoying. Don't add a, yeah, my stream is 18 plus button if it doesn't mean shit. I cannot say this often, and I cannot stress this often enough, because in the simplest terms, if it is not actually there to allow me to give my viewers potentially something a bit more adult, then don't add that option. A swear word, it doesn't make a fucking stream fucking adult. Just because I said fuck once does not mean this is 18 plus now. Believe you me, I've seen children using far harsher language than that. Far younger than they should use that harsh language, and honestly, if I had used that harsh language at that particular point in my life, somebody would have probably given me, you know, a nice little 5 fingers through the face. Justifiably so, mind you. That's kinda just uselessly annoying. Never do it. Why is it that this particular artist had such a unfortunate trend to, well, A, not color or not have anyone call layer for them later on any of their very distinctive artworks? Oh well, it's a topic for another day, isn't it? For the moment, I think it is finally high time that I do excuse myself, as well, we are now basically close to an hour later than I had intended to go, and I mean, it's black and white. Do I really want to use black and white art? Kinda, I guess. One is pretty fucking neat. Oh well, I can debate this at length once I'm, well, awake again. Shouldn't be that long. I'll probably be sleeping for like 2 hours or so. Because as I said, I do kind of would like to get some more cleaning done today, and I'm not the kind of person who would do that in the evening after we are supposed to be, you know, quiet, as I do have some decent basic respect for my neighbors, which I really would like that they would reflect that respect towards me as well, but alas, one cannot have everything, I suppose. With that said, I had a nice and basically double as long as we actually played games amount of time to talk. I do enjoy our little talk sessions, I must admit. It is a rather nice little way to wind down, basically, and give me an option to well, ramble profoundly, which I do enjoy, as is rather, you know, obvious from most of the things I do. So you can definitely expect this to happen again. Not gonna lie. Gonna lie indeed. The plan I already kinda put out in rough terms, so internet is willing, over the next couple of days we will see both a stream of the Expeditions Rome game that Strategy has rather nicely granted us already, because it is installed, and well, it's taken place in space. It makes me feel guilty while looking at its shortcut, while taking the space that I could use for, you know, more pictures of waifus, obviously. But who knows, maybe it's actually good enough that we're going to play with it a bit longer, I don't know, and I'm not going to look up anything about it, as I would rather like to let myself be potentially positively surprised. Who knows? We will find out one way or another. Namely, we're playing it, and then we will also, of course, start the next Ys game. But the next Ys game, in its current iteration, is going to be quite a bit closer to the Ys Origin game, which is a huge improvement over what it originally was. But I'll tell you more about it once we actually start. Excuse me, my nose seems to be getting a bit itchy at the moment. But well, you know how it is with the best laid plans, and how they rarely work out as one would like them to. So we can only really hope that things will work out as I hope they will. Keep an eye out, you'll see. I usually do tend to politely alarm people to the fact that we're doing something, but well, the only thing I can do there is hope that it actually reaches people, because, well, I have no guarantee. None at all. As for anything else, as I said before, I now have arranged for a secondary channel, that's the right word, where all of the ramblings will go into the future. It should be linked from the both Twitch and from the main YouTube thingy, which I now have, renamed, because otherwise I'm gonna get confused. Where before it was just Insius, now it's gaming there, so you actually have an idea of what's going on there. Mostly because, I have a tendency to get confused, and before I get confused and start uploading things to the wrong channels and making a lot of fucking mess of things, I would rather like to make things easier on myself. The main reason, mind you. I mean, in case it wasn't obvious, considering there's like thousands of videos of just gaming on there. Yeah, that's what we're gonna deal with that there. Everything else will be on the other one, because, well, it is quite literally something that you can shorten to ERA, which I am rather happy about, to be fair. I'm probably gonna get, car bombed at some point in the near future for that particular nonsense, but, well, you only live once and all of that good nonsense. What can I say? A good joke is quite literally to die for. Let's hope it happens not too soon from here on out, because, well, I would rather like to do this a bit more often. Was there anything else? Oh, right. Depending a bit on how the little funding goes for the momentary goal, we'll either play both the Class of 09 and its secondary entry. Excuse-moi. At the end of the year, and hope that its humor holds up to what I have been promised. Maybe. Otherwise, since I now have the first one in my possession, thanks to Strategy, once more, who has gracefully gifted this to me just today, we'll just take a quick look at that, basically do a nice little, introduction to it, and then hopefully feel happy and peppy about it. We shall see which format it will be, somewhere around the end of the month, I would say. Actually speaking, this is not a good month for any sort of collection, because, well, that's the fucking Christmas month, and people have a tendency to, do the reasonable thing and spend more money on their friends and family in this particular month, and that kinda probably leaves them with less spending money on me. Which is kinda sad. But understandable, to be fair. I'm not gonna sit here and go like, no, you should... Actually, no, I'm gonna sit here and go like, yeah, you should rather spend money than on your fucking friends and family. To be fair, that would probably be the better economical decision to make. Oh well. Joking aside and other nonsense. If things go well, we'll be back probably tomorrow afternoon. But if I wake up early and I see the internet is working, I'm not going to take the risk. I'm going to start in the morning, which is very useless information, because considering where in the world you are, your time zone might be quite literally the opposite of that, so that means shit all. Quite literally. Which is why we have a nice little Discord thingy where you can go and get a nice little ping whenever something is happening. So long as I don't forget, which happens, luckily enough, rather rarely. I could try to automate this, but I don't want to. I rather like my personal touch. Also, I don't know how. It's just a bit of a bigger problem, to be fair. But well, I think everything else we can talk about the next time. I have wasted more than enough time on my outro, which is at this point, since we started basically... Oh well, I started basically excusing myself like an hour ago. I think we all know I suck at ending things.